Hello all of you out there, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 good Ark Tames. Not the Ark Tames which are necessarily my favourites, but ones which are still definitely worth the tame. In at number 10 is the Chalik Ethereum, and this creature really does get a bad rep, and its tame method is definitely an interesting one, you having to feed this thing beer. But all of that aside, this is actually a really great creature for dealing melee damage, as it is a pretty powerful creature, and its knockback on some of the smaller creatures which you'll find on Ark is absolutely insane. And that knockback is still a very useful ability to have for any creature, and obviously it can throw its rocks around as well. And little creatures actually have a long range ability attached to them, so it is really a convenience that this does have it. And yes, it will probably take some time to learn to actually control this, as it cannot be the easiest to aim. Once you get it right, you have yourself a really good fighting carnivore with some long range abilities, and it really shouldn't be left out of the general mix of what you should be taming. Yes, it's not going to be the best creature out there, but it still will be very worth your while. Next up, we have the Achatina. And this is actually a really great creature for farming cementing paste, as they literally create it, and that pretty much is their only use. The taming method is also very simple, just requiring some sweet vegetable cake, which isn't the most expensive thing, and considering how much cementing paste you can get out of these things, it is definitely worth it. All for that cementing paste, of course, as that is basically the only reason for getting these things. Now, the Mososaurus isn't my favourite Ark Tame, of course, which is why it's on this list. These are kind of mediocre to not really mediocre, no, better than mediocre. The Mososaurus is a good tame. I will definitely say that. It's not my favourites out there. I'll definitely say the Allosaurus is a much better ocean tame, but this is good tames, not like the best tames. So that's why the Mososaurus is here. Sorry for my rubbish explanation of it, but essentially this is an underwater creature which is going to pack a lot of damage, and with the X versions on Gen 1 you can have yourself an even better time, and you can even craft a platform saddle for this thing and build a base on the back of it if that's your thing as well. It's just I don't really use the Mosa that much, and when I use it, yes, I definitely enjoy it, but I don't really get any kind of connection through it. Now, the anglerfish is definitely a creature which I think at some point you should tame, and it definitely is worth it for all of that silica pearl farming. I don't know why I couldn't say silica pearl there, but yes, this is the ultimate silica pearl farmer. You don't even need to get off the back of this thing to farm it. You can just, I can't remember what you do, just like attacking. I haven't used this thing in a couple of weeks now, so my mind is oddly ill refreshed. As yes, this isn't the most memorable creature, but it definitely is one which if you get into using, you'll use a lot. It's just I'm playing Extinction at the moment, and you know, these things really aren't going to be any help on Extinction. There's not really any kind of ocean on that map. But yes, if you're in a pinch and you need some silica pearls, the angler is a great shout for a creature. If you haven't tamed one already, definitely tame one. And if you just want to farm some angler gel, that is a great use out of these things as well. If you kill them, you can get angler gel, you can put it in torches, and it has many other uses as well. Now, the Bronto is one of these tames which just has to be mentioned on the list. This creature is one which, albeit, as obviously this list goes, isn't going to be the creature which is going to absolutely change your game and just be the most insane creature you have ever set eyes upon. But it is still a very good harvester of berries, and it even has a platform saddle too, where you can build a base if that's your thing, again, like the Mosa. And it does actually deal a reasonable amount of damage, although it probably will take some time. But I did manage to kill that chalk golem. I think they're chalk golems on Vaguero. Not sure. Educate me if I got that wrong. Comment down below what are they called, because I'm not actually quite sure. Yes, the Bronto does lack in mobility, but considering the length of its tail and how many bushes it can gather, this is a really great creature which, if you haven't tamed already, definitely give it a try. In at number 5 is the Rock Golem, and this thing is a really great tame, I will admit, but not one which I am absolutely crazy about. And its taming method is one of huge annoyance, which somewhat does actually deter me from taming this creature, as I really don't want to get out the cannons and a parasaur, because that's the method that I use, or even a rocket launcher and do it that way, as that method is particularly risky. But once I do have one, I do find that I do use it quite a lot for killing deathworms on Scorched Earth, and is obviously really great at doing that. But still, overall, I don't have the greatest fun when using this creature, as it isn't the most mobile out there. I do prefer a more quick and snappy creature over something like this, but I could definitely see if I was more of a PvP player, I'd be loving this thing and I'd be taming it a heck of a lot more. Just for me, it's one of those mediocre tames which really I don't need as a PvE player, but it is still fun to tame a couple of times and just on general occasions. Now we have the Astrocetus, and this creature is definitely one which I'll use from time to time, but its taming method is one which I really just can't get round. But it is definitely one of those creatures which I prefer using than the Golem. And obviously, as this list goes on, these are creatures which I prefer more and more, if you haven't figured that out already. So the creature in number 1 is the best of the good creatures. And this is actually just some good fun for transporting things around and just for some general sky combat as well. Although this more fits into the PvP space of Ark players. So for me, a PvE Ark player, this isn't going to be the most useful creature to me. But I can still see all of its very valuable use cases in PvP scenarios, and still it is some really good fun to ride around on, mess around with, and deal some heavy damage on creatures with. A good tame. Now, I'm not really an Astroddelphus lover. I don't absolutely crave this creature, but I'll definitely admit it is a good one, and in my opinion, better than the Astrocetus, at least for my use case, as having a fast travel creature is definitely a really good thing to have. It's just I vastly prefer the Tropiognathus if I'm going to use a creature like this which can travel around the map with great speeds, or I will use the Maywing and I will alternate between those two creatures. And I don't really use this thing as its saddle level is too high, and I usually don't really get to that level, although I have on Gen 2. It just is a little bit too much effort for me to actually get one of these things, and the taming method is albeit quite simple, and I do have a guide on it, although not the best that is in my YouTube past, which I don't look too fondly upon, but you know, it's still there if you did want to check it out. It isn't actually the simplest of tame methods, and a lot of things can go wrong with it. Whereas a Tropiognathus, it is pretty straightforward overall, and yes, not the easiest again, like a simple knockout tame, it definitely is a pretty basic one in my opinion, and I have no trouble with it. But I can definitely agree the Astroddelphus is a great creature, and if you tame one, you're going to have a good time with it. They are just that kind of creature. They are really speedy, fast, and hugely agile. And in at number 2 is the Rhinogatha. And again, this is a creature which, albeit, I can see great use in. And I have used a little bit. I just can't love this creature. And I'm not the biggest fan of it in my opinion. Obviously, that would be my opinion. But I can still see its use case. Just to me, I don't really need this creature for everything. I can make do with some other creatures to transport things around, and yes, the ability to carry Rexes around is useful. I can always just use cryopods, or obviously the Soul Traps mod, to transport those creatures around, and I don't need a creature which can carry those types of creatures. And the tame method is a very long and lengthy process, and on the old version of Ark, these things are extremely rare, making the taming method even harder than it already needs to be. Whereas in ASA, these things just spawn absolutely crazily. They are everywhere in the swamp biomes on the island. It's insane. And obviously the Lost Island isn't in ASA at the moment, so the island's going to be your only bet. But if you do want to tame one, you have to kill a male Rhinogatha to start and take out that pheromone gland, which will be in their inventory. Tame a Bronto or another creature, which it will accept, and get all those resources, which were on screen about 5 seconds ago. The Bronto is the advised, and those resources aren't actually needed, only needed for 100% effectiveness. Then you'll want to trap it or net gun it. Net gunning it is much easier. Pull out a magnifying glass or use the awesome spyglass like I'm using here if you have access to it, obviously. Otherwise, the magnifying glass is your best bet, or you might be able to use the tech binoculars too. And then you want to damage it as much as you can, obviously without killing it. Get its health as low as you can. Obviously, you don't want to kill this thing. That would be really bad, and then you just have to wait for this thing to get out. But before it does, or obviously if you're using a normal trap, you're just going to have to open the trap, feed that pheromone gland to your creature, and then wait outside until, or actually wait from a safe distance, sorry, and then you might damage it more if it's needed, and then it will impregnate your dino. That's when those resources are needed in the kind of craving timers. Then at the end of that, your creature will fall over and out will come a baby Rhinogatha. A lengthy process, but actually quite worth it sometimes. And finally, in at number 1 is the Allosaurus. And this creature, most people will disagree with me by putting this in at the number 1 slot for good tames. It is my favourite tame which I classify as good, but I can't put it into the very good category, as for some reason I just can't like this creature, and I don't know why. I've tried so many times to like this creature, but I just don't like the size of it and all of it. I don't even like the taming method, which is so simple. I don't like the pack separation bit, which isn't even necessary. You can just tame all 3. It's so simple, and I don't really know why. I just can't like this creature, but I just can't really like this creature for whatever reason. And I can admit that it is a really good tame, but for me, it just stays in the good category. And even though it has the bleed ability, good mobility, it has good stamina, good damage, and good health, I don't know. Like I've said so many times, I just really struggle using this thing for some reason. I don't know. I guess I'm just allo incapable or something. But I'll always go with a Carno, and then if I want to go big scale, I'll go with a UT, and I won't go with this creature. I don't know why. I'll go with the UT, and I'll just skip the allo entirely, and maybe I'll go for a Rex, although I probably won't travel around with that thing as it's not great. And then maybe I'll use the Megalosaurus or the Baryonyx, some much better carnivores in my opinion than the allo. And it's kind of sad that I don't really like it as much as I thought I would when obviously I was first using the allo, but I've just never really enjoyed using this creature, and that's just the fact of that. And creatures like the Deinonychus, the Shadowmane, the Baryonyx, the Megalosaurus, the Rex, the UT, the Carno are all creatures which I vastly prefer from the allo, and that is probably just the way that it's always going to be. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I really hope that you enjoyed this one, as I did enjoy making it. And comment down below, what is your favourite good tame? And do you actually like the allo, or you like me? And I'll see you all later.